Hello guys, welcome back to another video. I am so incredibly excited to finally be filming today a video that I've wanted to film for so long. My entire health and fitness journey, basically like from where it all began, how I've really gotten to a really good place with my body in terms of how I eat, how I train, and how I feel about myself. I've even written notes, so we are getting down to the nitty-gritty stuff. I feel like there's so much to say. I'm like, how do I start? I was, as you would call it, quite a chubby kid. I went through I call it like my chub phase, which I feel like a lot of us do, but I feel like my chub phase was like quite a lot compared to everyone that I was surrounded by. I think it was obviously like puberty, but also I wasn't really thinking about the food I was eating at all. I did not have a care in the world. I have always, and this has not changed now, but I've always loved my food. So when I was younger, I just kind of like ate whatever. And I feel like a lot of kids do that, but it just kind of like doesn't really show on their body. It definitely showed on my body. Basically only ate like pizza, pasta, pastries, all of that kind of stuff, which don't get me wrong, I still eat all of that. But when that's all you're eating, and how much I was eating for my body type anyway, wasn't a good time. I was also never super active. I did dance a couple of times a week a little bit later on, but I never like had a sport that I loved, and I think that definitely played a role in it. I was more so a kid that just filmed videos and edited them and stayed at home. I was also eating a hell of a lot of dairy, and I always wondered why every night I would go to sleep with a terrible tummy pain and like feel so sick every night. I was literally that person that would just go into the fridge, like pour a glass of milk and just drink it, get the cheese block and literally just like cut it and eat it. Like that would be a snack for me. I didn't think about it, I ate whatever. And to be honest, thinking back to it, I probably had the best relationship I had ever with food because I didn't think about it. But yeah, I was kind of just probably eating amounts of foods that my body really didn't need. Fast forward to the year 2013, I was just about to turn 14 and my mum actually passed away from breast cancer. This was a huge wake-up call for me, and around the same time, I think it was a mixture of stress from it all and also puberty, my skin started to break out. So I started just getting pimples like around my forehead, and I was like, what is this? None of my friends had pimples, which I was just kind of like, come on, seriously? I had also already got my period. I was getting it normally once a month, like straight off the bat, which I know for a lot of girls, it can kind of like change and be a bit inconsistent for the first few months, but mine was like completely fine. Kind of continued to stay fine. I started to get terrible period pain, but that only lasted maybe a few months. I really put this all down to actually a massive diet change that I made when I was 14, I think, or maybe it was even 15 when I actually made the full diet change. But in order to clear my skin, I started to do research upon research, like hours and hours of research on how to clear my skin. And I also wanted to lose weight. Back then in like 2014, I feel like it was very like lose weight, be like really skinny, like that's the goal, that's what everyone wants. And so when I was still kind of like holding on to that little bit of extra chub, I didn't really want it. I wanted to look exactly how the models looked and everything. So I was Googling things like how to clear your skin and how to lose weight, how to lose fat, all of that kind of stuff. Then this insane thing called veganism popped up. This thing called veganism was claiming to basically take away all of my health problems, clear my skin, make me shredded. People were telling me that, oh, you can just eat like 10 bananas and like 15 mangoes and like all of your health problems will go away. And I was just like, amazing, I love fruit, this diet's clearly for me. So that didn't go so well. I'll talk about the positives first, because there was a couple of positives and there was also quite a lot of negatives. So positives, I did lose quite a bit of that extra chub. I would kind of say I was still a bit soft. That was a positive. Like I think my body definitely did drop a little bit of that extra chub. And also my period pain basically stopped, actually 100% stopped. Like I wasn't getting any period pain at the moment. Those were the positives. However, my period actually then became very irregular. I would be getting it every like 2 to 3 months, and it'd be incredibly light. So it was kind of like I stopped getting period pain, but then I stopped like really getting periods. At this point, my skin was also getting worse. So it now like kind of the pimples up here spread to like down on my chin. So I was like, obviously it's like quite hormonal. So I actually started to see a naturopath. Oh my gosh, like, oh, I could talk for so long about how many thousands of dollars that I have spent on naturopaths and nutritionists, and I'm not saying that they're bad in any sense. I still quite like stand by them, but you need to find the right one. That's all I'm gonna say. Filming my health and fitness journey.
Oh. I can input. Been on a little bit of it with you.
You definitely have. When I get to 2017, because that's when you met me officially, kind of.
My life's been better since. I have my gym tonic now, I think, so I feel like.
Ooh, starting early, are we?
You know what I need? Water. I haven't had a single sip of water all day.
Ooh! I've been so good. I've had like 2 liters so far.
Thank you.
And this naturopath was pretty good. She managed to balance my hormones. I got my period back like once every month, wasn't getting pain. That was kind of fine. She also just like mentioned that, I think because I was following this like vegan, basically raw vegan diet at the time, because that's what I was told was the best from online. She kind of like talked a bit more sense into me, and maybe, you know, it probably works perfectly for some people. But personally for me, definitely does not work. Eventually I stopped seeing her just because it was getting really expensive, and my hormones had leveled out but my skin was staying the same. So I still had spots on my forehead and spots on my chin, but a lot of people were just telling me like it's just hormones, it's just puberty. And I kind of like almost was like, okay, like yeah, it'll go soon, it'll go eventually. I also at this time, so I was not only like a vegan, I was also completely sugar free. So I would not eat anything with sugar in it, like absolutely anything. If even a sauce or a condiment had sugar in it, I wouldn't touch it, which looking back, seriously regret, because it definitely kind of instigated a very unhealthy relationship with food and a very restrictive kind of mindset. That's what I was doing at the time, because I was like, well, sugar's clearly the thing that's breaking me out. So yeah, I kind of was on a relatively restrictive diet because I was already vegan, and I'm not saying vegan is restrictive or anything, but the way I was doing it kind of was. And also to then be like, okay, no sugar, which sugar's in like basically everything. Now it was also around this time that I started to work out, because I again still wanted to get skinny. As bad as that sounds, like that was what I was working out for. I started to go on like, this is gonna sound so bad, I started to go on like 1 kilometer runs, and like I would think that was a workout. Like I'd be like, yes, like 1 kilometer, woo. I'd also do like at-home workouts on YouTube. So I'd literally look up like 20-minute full body workout, and I would just follow YouTube videos. I do think that my body like semi-changed, but it was also always kind of puffy and always kind of just like seemed a bit inflamed, and my skin was also staying exactly the same. So I was like, oh, like this is so frustrating. Fast forward to 2017, this was my last year of school. Basically told myself at the beginning of the year that I wanted to get to the best body that I could get to for like things like graduation and formal and schoolies and everything. I was like, I want to get to the best place I could ever be body-wise, like looking-wise kind of thing. This is when a lot of my restrictions started. I was not fully vegan at this time, because I started seeing another naturopath this year as well, who kind of, because my hormones kind of went out of whack again and my skin was getting worse, and so she kind of like put me on just a bit more protein, so things like fish and eggs and stuff like that. But I was still eating quite like a largely plant-based diet, still very restrictive in the things that I was eating. So I told myself I couldn't have bread, told myself I couldn't have like so many foods. Also this naturopath, which was kind of like the opposite of what I started to do when I was vegan, told me that I shouldn't be eating any fruit. My favorite food, literally like bananas, mangoes, everything, I cut it all out. Even like berries, she said I could have like a few berries here and there, but like kind of advised me to not. So I was in a very restrictive state in terms of what I was eating at this point. And also with the stresses of it being grade 12 and just kind of like, I don't know, it was kind of like a big year. My last year of school, I turned to something that made me feel comforted and made me feel safe, and that was eating. And this is when I have filmed loads and loads of videos, or probably like a few videos, sharing my story with binge eating, but this is where all of the binges began. I would, you know, just start with one thing and then go back and more and more and more. And because I had kind of restricted fruit, I would be like, oh, like, stuff it, I'm gonna eat fruit. And then I would literally have like 3 smoothie bowls and like all of this fruit, because I told myself I couldn't have it. And then I would be like, okay, tomorrow I'm gonna start fresh. Tomorrow I'm not gonna do this anymore. Like tomorrow I'll be really like restrictive again, which was just the worst mindset ever. And that really set up this whole all or nothing, restrict, binge cycle. Then it was getting up to graduation. So 2017, I was 18 at this point. And I was starting to exercise more and more. I had joined a gym and I was kind of just like going around to the gym. Like I didn't really have much structure, like know what to do. I just kind of went around and made stuff up as I went along. And then I remember formal was coming up. So like basically our graduation, where we like have to, you know, the boy asks us and we like wear a nice dress and everything. And I was like, I need to look incredible for this. Like, okay, so I feel like you need to knuckle down, you need to get so like on top of everything. And I remember the night before I literally had like a tiny bowl of broccoli. So silly. And then it was the week of schoolies and I just like drank a ton. We didn't eat well at all. And I got home feeling just terrible. Didn't feel confident in my body. I felt really self-conscious. I didn't want to go to the beach. And then I actually got a job at an ice cream shop, which was a good job. Like I worked with some good people, but I ate a lot of ice cream while I was there. Like a lot of ice cream, especially this was very much like I would go days without like, you know, clean days as I would think about it back then, of being really, really restrictive. And then I'd go to work and like my body obviously like couldn't help itself. Like it needed that extra fuel and energy and sugar. So then I would just like binge on heaps of ice cream, and we could also bring home like tubs of ice cream, like leftovers. So I would literally eat like a liter of ice cream, like the big liter tubs. I would eat them all to myself and then I would feel so bad. And also around this time, I feel like it was a mixture of like all of the shit food I was eating and also drinking, because I just graduated school. My friends and I were kind of in that like partying phase and going out and drinking. My skin got so bad. Like my skin, as I said before, it was just kind of like on my forehead and on my chin. It then started breaking out all over my cheeks. And at this point I was like, I could kind of put up with the pimples around here and here, but when it started to go on my cheeks, it was so obvious and I just hated it. I felt so self-conscious. I never wanted anyone to see me without any makeup. I mean, I kind of always struggled with my skin throughout school, but when I graduated, I just feel like it got so much worse. All 2018, I continued to work at this gelato shop and the binge eating, restrict cycle continued. I joined another gym and I would go through like phases where, you know, I'd go a few weeks and I'd be working out every day at the gym and feeling really good and eating good food, and then I would restrict, then I would binge again, and it would just kind of start again. And every single day, every single time it happened, I would be like, okay, tomorrow's gonna start fresh. I'm never gonna do this again. I've literally got a diary of me writing things like, last binge ever, like this will be the last one. I'm never going to do this to my body ever again, because I knew that I wasn't doing anything good for my body. But I mean, I talk about this loads more in the dedicated videos I have to sharing it all. But when you're in that mindset, you're not thinking logically. So yeah, 2018 in terms of how I was feeling with my body and everything, at least for the probably like 3/4 of the year, I was not feeling good. And I feel like my body was just hating me and showing me that, because I wasn't showing it love and respect, you know, like I would restrict and then I'd binge and then I'd restrict. So my body was so puffy and just like it felt so gross all the time, and my skin was so bad. And I think it got to like the end of 2018. I wasn't restricting in like I wouldn't eat breakfast, I wouldn't eat blah, 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 but I was just very restrictive in the mindset of like I can only eat clean food. I think I was kind of under eating with what I was eating, because it was just so much like, you know, like massive salads of just baby spinach and avocado and a few things. So I think I wasn't really thinking I was just thinking I was eating healthy, but probably like if you added all the calories that I was eating in a day up, plus my workouts, I wasn't eating enough. But I remember at this time, I was quite happy with what my body was looking like, because I was kind of like shedding that extra chub, and I remember taking photos, and this is kind of when I started my Instagram as well. Then we get into 2019, so last year, I started the year off basically the same. I was kind of more getting out of that binging like cycle kind of thing. I was getting to a more balanced place. I would occasionally, but definitely not as much as the beginning of 2018 and like 2017. Then I went traveling. I went to New York for a month with one of my best friends, and we just went to town on all of the food, which is of course like what you've got to do when you're traveling. And then I basically like came back from New York and then went to Bali, and Sam and I just like ate all the good food there as well, because like obviously. So about halfway through 2019 is when we moved out. At first, I found myself actually putting on quite a bit of weight. I feel like it was kind of like an aftermath of traveling and then just getting home and not really like having fully like a lot of goals, and also moving out, so I didn't have like much routine at first. I also think my metabolism was a little bit stuffed up because of all of the restriction and binging that happened. So I found my body retaining a lot of extra fat, and this was probably the heaviest I'd been in a long time, and I was very unhappy with how I was looking. I think I mentioned this in a video a while ago as well, but because I was living with two boys who eat a lot more than me, I was kind of like matching what they were eating. And even if I wasn't hungry after dinner, if they were having dessert, like I would have dessert, and I just wasn't really listening to my body. I was kind of always eating. So around maybe like September last year, I wanted to make some changes. I knew I wasn't happy with what my body was looking like. So I decided to finally make a change. I was like, I am going to set myself a challenge, and I'm going to get to a really, really good place. Joined this class gym, and I did a 6-week challenge, which I feel like a lot of people kind of found my channel from this video. I'll post a thumbnail here. The How I Changed My Body in 6 Weeks video. That was basically just a 6-week challenge that we had at our gym, and I decided to really dedicate myself to it. I was training 5 days a week, getting to a really, really good balanced place with what I was eating. I wasn't restricting anymore. I wasn't, also in terms of what I was eating, I would be like, of course I'll have some, dairy-free ice cream. Of course I'll put like tomato sauce on my dinner. Like I wasn't saying no sugar, and I was just quite balanced and having the right amount of fruit, not like 10 bananas, not like restricting certain foods, just getting to a really good place. And it definitely wasn't like all of a sudden just perfect. It definitely took time to get out of that restrictive binge cycle mindset. I want to say it's just taken me up until now really to be fully kind of in a good place with it. However, even though I was quite happy with how my body was looking at this time, my skin started to get even worse. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I'm doing everything right. I was so confused. And so I started to actually see an acupuncturist, because I was like, hopefully they can help like with my skin and with everything that's happening. And they actually mentioned that my body's under quite a lot of stress. I wasn't having nearly enough iron in my diet, so it was really like putting a toll on my body, and just like the internal stress. I didn't feel that stressed in my life, but internally my body was quite stressed. And so when I was doing these workout classes, kind of like F45, if anyone knows F45, there was a lot of HIIT, and I would get really competitive as well. So when we were doing a class, like I would want to beat everyone and be like, do as many burpees as possible, like, just push myself to the absolute limit like 5 days a week, and that just put too much stress on my body. And I eventually found after the 6-week challenge that my body started to kind of puff up because it was stress. So my stomach, I found it kind of always looking bloated, and I was like, what the hell? And that was fully just the stress on my body. The acupuncturist I was seeing did kind of level out my hormones again. My period kind of went a bit out of whack, but it kind of got back on track. I also stopped all HIIT training. This was honestly probably like just as isolation happened, so it kind of worked out because I couldn't go to the gym I was going to. And honestly, I feel like isolation really has changed my mindset in terms of health and fitness. The only really workouts I've been doing is probably like 2 to 3 strength workouts a week. So I'll just do, like, we've got some weights here. And also going for walks. I have become an avid walker, like 5 to 6 Ks, and I honestly feel like it has helped my body so much because it's taken away that stress. So it's taken away that puffiness around my stomach and everywhere. Hormones are great. I feel like, I'm not saying walking has done this, but because I'm not putting that stress on my body anymore, my skin is also improving so much. And honestly, I feel the best place I have ever been with my body. Obviously I definitely have bad days. I think that's also very normal. Definitely the most balanced I have ever been. There would be a time where I said like I couldn't have pizza, I couldn't have rice, I couldn't have anything, but now I love all of those things and I incorporate them into my diet most days. Kind of made myself gluten-free for a long time because I thought that was the healthiest. I am dairy-free because my body does not tolerate dairy well whatsoever, but I'm not gluten-free. I eat gluten. I have a very, very balanced diet. I make sure that all my meals are big enough to satiate me. And as I have mentioned loads of times, I do have a healthy recipe ebook that I put in most of my favorite meals. So, you know, a lot of the dinners and lunches will usually take from there. Things like pad thais and curries and pastas and all of that kind of stuff. I feel like health and fitness is it really comes down to a lot of the time your mindset and like your mental state towards it as well. So while I feel like my body is in the best place it's ever been in, my mind is as well, and that is the most important thing because it's sustainable. And I think the most important thing is, it's going to be different for everyone, but finding a health and fitness routine that works for you and that's sustainable for you, that you actually enjoy. I have some friends who are like, oh, like I just need to start my health and fitness grind. Like I need to stop eating the foods I love. And I just say to them like, no, like that's so the opposite, because that's not maintainable. You know, you might do it for like a few weeks and then your body will be like, I hate this. And then you'll just go back to the way you're normally eating. I do actually have a video where I filmed what I eat in a week. So basically like all the foods that I eat in a week. So I will also link that down below if you want to get a little bit more of an insight into all the foods that I do eat. But yeah, that takes us to current day, where I'm just so happy. And I feel like I've been doing like the biggest, lengthiest Instagram posts lately. But I've done many posts on just like how I feel at the best place I've ever been, and that I'm still like, I still love health and fitness, but it doesn't control my life anymore and I'm not obsessed with it. It's just a part of my life. Your body is doing the best it can. And I think a lot of the time we demonize our bodies and go, oh, I hate my body's like this. I hate that I'm like this. But like your body is literally just like trying its best, as like silly as that sounds. So you might as well work with it and not against it. So yeah, I think that is basically it, which is kind of crazy. If I have missed anything, I will be in the comments, so ask any questions and I'll definitely reply to them. That's all. I'm gonna stop talking because I feel like this video is gonna be so long. I really hope you have enjoyed. Definitely, if you have any more questions or video requests, leave them in the description box, in the comments. Give the video a big thumbs up as well if you did enjoy, and I'll see you in my next one.